Hello, my name is Leslie Spear, and this is my Module 7 presentation over a mini case study concerning family involvement. To start, here's a summary of the mini case study. The main characters are Joel Pham, who is the student, Mrs. Pham, who's Joel's mother and works for a local printing company, Mr. Pham, who is Joel's father, Mr. Rolnick, which is Joel's teacher, and Ms. Smith, who is the co-worker of Mr. Rolnick. So here's my summary over the case study. Joel's parents were not actively involved in the school or with their child's education. Despite Mr. Rolnick's efforts, he could not get Mr. and Mrs. Pham to become engaged. Mr. Rolnick gave plenty of opportunity to get parents involved, but Joel's parents were never interested. Joel wanted to work with another student on a science fair project, but this required parent approval from both sides. He suggested a meeting with all the parents and both students who wanted to work on the project together. Mr. Pham didn't want to meet and said he would just communicate with Joel at home. Mr. Rolnick was concerned with the lack of parental involvement and support he was getting from the Phams. He reached out for help from an experienced teacher, Ms. Smith, who suggested the lack of involvement was due to negative past experiences the family had as they went to the same school. They are Vietnamese and didn't get proper support when they were in school. She suggested that Mr. Rolnick find other ways to make the family feel welcome so they would get more involved. All right, the first question that we were asked about the case study was, what other factors might be keeping them from volunteering? And I suggested that maybe since they have never done it before, they might be scared of the unknown. They don't want to be embarrassed when they are asked to do something and might not know or understand the proper way to do it. Asking for help or clarification might be even more embarrassing for them. To help with this, Mr. Rolnick could provide a more detailed description of the volunteer work he would like done to kind of give them an idea what they're getting into. They also might not see the importance of volunteering in school. It might be perceived as a waste of time, especially if they have already had a negative perception to start with. Maybe Mr. Rolnick should set up events without asking the parents to do anything, just simply be there and experience school with their child. In my own personal experience, I honestly haven't had too many parents not willing to volunteer in some sort of capacity, since this is only I'm going into my 4th year of teaching. However, last year I had one family that I really struggled to communicate and get involved. So the mother was a single mom of 2, who the previous year she took in 2 of her sister's kids to care for. She didn't have them last year when I had her child, but that was something that she had done in the past. So a lot of things going on in her life. She herself grew up in the foster care system, moving from home to home, from school to school, and this is causing her to have an adverse experience with school. I truly believe that she was doing what she could mentally and physically to get involved with her child's education, but I still feel there was room for more engagement. Her child did struggle with some behavior issues in my classroom, but I made it a point when I called her to not only call her when her child was struggling, but also when she had a great day or week, or even just did one positive thing for the day. So just trying to call her and create a positive relationship, not always expecting a negative call from me. And that was something that I think got her more involved and engaged with her child's learning. In years past, negative phone calls were the only form of communication to home that she really got from the school, and it was hard to build that relationship with her at the beginning of the year. So she would see the school's number pop up and often ignored it in the beginning because she was anticipating news about her child's bad behavior. And I also worked closely with the school social worker, and she had a great relationship with mom because, as I mentioned earlier, this mom had taken in 2 kids that weren't her own through the foster care system, so the social worker had worked really closely with her during that process. She was a great resource to use when I struggled with communication because the social worker already had a great relationship, so if I ever needed anything and I couldn't get a hold of mom, she was a person that I could turn to. But my consistent, positive, more than negative communication really helped build that relationship and trust with Mom, so she felt more safe and welcome. And by doing this, Mom was more willing to participate and get actively involved in my classroom and in other school activities and events. All right, question 2 about the case study was, how should Mr. Rolnick and other teachers and administrators reach out to parents and other caretakers who might have experienced school as a hostile environment when they were students? I suggested that Mr. Rolnick and other school staff should reach out to parents in a non-threatening way that doesn't put any pressure on these parents or caretakers who have had an adverse experience while they were in school. They need to take small steps towards building a relationship and trust. And trust will be the first thing they need to build with families. And this trust can start to be built with a couple simple in-person contacts. And that in-person contact, in my opinion, holds more weight than a note sent home or an email. And this initial contact could be through Meet the Teacher night or a family engagement night. These events should be fun, and parents should have no obligations other than just to show up and experience school with their child. Also, when they reach out, they should first ask the parents about their questions and concerns and just get to know the family. Not put them on the spot, but to explore more about where the family is so they can reach them better. By getting to know the family, they might also find common ground and be able to grow from there. After that initial foundation is built, consistent and clear communication in a variety of forms should be used to keep the involvement not just in a certain situation, but throughout the whole year and in years to come as the child's in school. A similar experience I've had is I've usually come from the parents. A similar experience that I've had usually comes from the parents who really struggled academically in school. So many times I've heard, well, I wasn't very good at reading or math when I was in school either. They just get it honest. Or they think I got through school with minimal effort and little parental involvement and I made it. So when I hear things like this, I try to take a different approach and try to teach them the importance and potential of their child if more efforts were made. I also try to give them direct resources so that they can get involved at home and in my classroom. And I never push anything, but allow them to see the importance and try to do what they can. I've also seen this with my parents who grew up in the foster care system. So their experiences moving from school to school didn't give them a positive picture of what family school involvement can look like. And again, I try to get through this barrier by educating and showing them the possibilities and importance of this involvement. Staff can figure out if this is a barrier from the beginning by gaining trust and allowing the families to be open with past experiences and concerns. Showing them you care and want to listen will be a huge part in changing their mindset. Getting to know the family on a personal basis first before even talking academics. Surveys are also a great tool the school and myself as a teacher could use to gauge family school experiences as well as their comfort level participating in school volunteer activities. When they express what they are comfortable with, you can better adapt involvement opportunities to fit their needs. Also, talking to previous teachers or schools the child experienced could also inform you on the family, setting you up for more success when you try to communicate them in the beginning of the year. By learning more about the student and family before the school year even starts and before you even try to communicate regularly with the family could help prevent situations like Joel's from even happening. It's vital to be proactive and not reactive as possible. Question 3. What are some ways parents can be involved and demonstrate interest in their child's education other than volunteering at school? I suggested ways parents can get involved in their child's education besides volunteering would be joining class for parties, not to bring anything or do anything, but just to be there with their child at school in a no-pressure situation. Joining the class for educational field trips. At our school, we also have specific days for moms, dads, grandparents, and other caretakers to come in, do an activity with their child, eat a snack, and just have some fun. You could also send activities home that can be done as a family. This doesn't mean sending home worksheets, but instead giving a fun scavenger hunt or other interactive resources to make learning fun and engaging for the whole family, and emphasizing reading by giving the parents reading materials to work with their child on would be a great way to get them involved. Give them different opportunities to work on reading with their child. For example, read alouds, reading to them. You could partner read with your child or a parent or family member. Just different ways to get them reading or listening to reading. Have their student interview their parents or caretakers and report their findings back to the teacher or class. You could make a whole assignment about it and really get to know your families better through your students. I've experienced lack of family engagement with parents or caretakers when they think they have nothing to bring to the table. They think they're not an asset or not necessary. They sometimes don't want to volunteer or interact because they think they might be less than some of the other parents or feel inadequate. And that's why in my classroom I try to provide a variety of ways parents can get involved in their child's education. Every parent should feel valued and welcome, and like they have ownership of their child's learning. I might send home a survey covering a variety of questions regarding their child as well as their family. And I encourage parents to talk to me outside of just parent-teacher conferences. Keep that open window of communication through a variety of ways of communicating. I also try to create that welcoming environment where families feel safe sharing their needs, concerns, and questions regardless of their background. Also, while I'm very welcoming and accommodating to families, at the same time, I really try to communicate parent expectations because they are just as responsible, I feel. These expectations aren't to create more worry or stress, but instead to help guide them on how to stay better connected to the school and their child's education. Here is the case study resource. All right, thank you for listening.